Grace and peace, shalom alaikum. Today I just want to briefly look at a verse that is often misused to support the notion that this is the way that you determine who is ethnically an Israelite. The verse in question is Deuteronomy chapter 28 at verse number 46, and it says, "They shall be a sign and a wonder against you and your offspring forever." The they there obviously referring back to the curses. Now, I want to first begin by going to the definition of this word in question. The word here, ot, is defined in the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament as a commemorative token. And if you look at the examples given, you'll see that one of these examples is mentioned in Joshua chapter number 4 and verse 6. When God tells them to pass on before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take up each of you a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the people of Israel, that this may be a sign among you. Now, what I want you to notice is that these stones, in and of themselves, can be set up by anybody. Anyone can go out and take 12 stones and set them up. But what God was telling these people was that to set up these stones as a sign, as a commemorative token. And what that basically means is that anyone can have this commemorative token, but for those who were in covenant with God, this would commemorate something special to them. And the Israelites, who were the covenant people of God, in Deuteronomy chapter number 28, these curses would commemorate the fact that they had broken the commandments of God. And to give a worldly example, I would point to for example, someone who goes to Disney World. You can purchase a cup, you can purchase something at Disney World to commemorate when you went there to celebrate someone's birthday. But that doesn't preclude someone else from going to Disney World and purchasing that same token. But that token to the other person would mean something completely different than what it means to you. And so these curses would commemorate the fact that Israel had broken its covenant with God. But that does not necessarily mean that someone else couldn't have these curses applied to them. And we'll see these curses being applied to other nations within Scripture itself. For example, you have Deuteronomy 28:48, which refers to a yoke of iron being placed on the necks of Israelites. But that does not preclude Jeremiah 28:14 from referring to a yoke of iron being placed on the neck of non-Israelites. Deuteronomy 28 and verse 64 refers to Israelites being scattered among the nations, but that does not preclude Ezekiel 30 and 26 from referring to non-Israelites, specifically Egyptians, being scattered among the nations. And lastly, Deuteronomy 28:36 refers to the king being taken into captivity, but that does not preclude God in Amos 1 and verse 15 from applying that same curse to the Ammonites and taking their king into exile. What you often notice proponents of this doing is committing what's called the fallacy of the undistributed middle. And what that fallacy is a fallacy in where a categorical syllogism where the middle term or the term that does not appear in the conclusion is not distributed to the other two terms. And you see an example on your screen that says all dogs are quadrupeds, all cats are quadrupeds, therefore all dogs are cats. Now that's obviously absurd, right? But there are some instances in where the fallacy is not as obvious. For example, you could say all lions are animals, all cats are animals, therefore all lions are cats. And so a lot of times this fallacy is hard to spot. It's not as noticeable as some other fallacies are. And so it may take some attention, it may take some care and consideration to see where people are going wrong when they commit this fallacy. An example that I see people doing is when they say this curse was said to happen to Israel for disobedience. This curse happened to me or my ancestors. Therefore, my ancestors were Israelites who disobeyed. And as we just pointed out in previous examples about these curses being applied to nations outside of Israel, if you apply these curses as a way to identify who is ethnically Israel, you are inevitably going to end up with false positives, especially when you add things like white supremacy, Jim Crow, segregation laws, and things of that nature, the history of slavery in America. When you add those factors into the reality of descendants of slaves into this country, you're going to end up with some false positives. And at the end of the day, it's impossible to use this as a way to determine one's lineage across thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. And there really is no way to tell without doing extensive research where one comes from simply by what they're experiencing currently.